All right.
Let's get started. So today's Tanya for Wednesday, the 3rd of Elul. The holy month of Elul is a very, we continue along with Epistle 10, which is again a letter arousing the Hasidim, the Alter Rebbe's Hasidim, to give charity in generous amounts despite economic hardship. And to do so, again, I marvel how it's such a um, sort of mundane sort of type of request. He brings, deep philosophical, mystical treatises to motivate people. And he says like this: the world is built on kindness. Olam chesed yiboneh. But it says we started this letter that the world, there's two, the Kabbalah, the Zohar comments is there's two types of kindness: Chesed Olam, and then Rav Chesed, or Chesed Ilah. There's worldly, there's world tempered kindness, and then there's like abundant kindness from God, which is beyond world tempered kindness.
Why would there be two types?
You'll see in a second. You'll see why in a second. And in general, the world needs God for every second for its existence, for its continued, existence. You need the flow of energy, spiritual, physical, existential energy, and more, right? Everything we get, it's ultimately starts a blessing from God, right?
Yeah.
And the when you do the mitzvahs properly, the system that God created for the partnership of man and God is well done. I mean, you're not missing an opportunity for a mitzvah. You're hitting every shot that comes your way, time and space and opportunity. Okay? Then you just need the basic world tempered kindness for the system because you're doing the world, you're doing reality well according to the manufacturer's specifications, right? You're doing the divine mitzvahs of which we connect to God, the source of life. When there's no rupture in the connection, then you just need basic, you know, manufactured God's original allotment for this reality system, right? He says, I make a reality. It's going to work with people. They're going to do good. I'm going to give them the flow of energy and the blessings needed to continue. Amazing. The machine's well oiled, well fed, and well maintained. That was, and then he says that's when the requirement of charity is no more than 20%. Says ideally you should give 20% of profit of income, right, to charity. Standard is 10%, but it's between 10 and 20%, but not more than 20%. Says that's when today he says that's qualified when the system of your connection to God, right, your reality is well maintained. You're doing your life, all aspects of your life, the way God wants you to.
Is the word Elah, is that Hebrew or
Yeah,
Aramaic? It's Hebrew.
that's Aramaic.
Oh, Aramaic.
But I'm not reading it. I'm giving you the background.
I
It
understand.
says however, this limitation on charity of up to 20% applies only to one who observes the Torah and does not depart from it from the right or left, even as much as a hair's breadth. As I said, because the system of reality in your existence is only possible through God's creating it and maintaining it. And what's the bridge between God and man? The Torah and the mitzvahs. So when you're doing it appropriately, perfectly, then you just need basic, keep on doing what you're doing, and you only do up to 20%, which is the normative system mitzvah of your relating the way you relate your money to God by giving up to 20% to charity. But let's say somebody has strayed from the path, heaven forfend, right? You've broken the system that God made between man, you and God. Like we all aren't perfect, right? There's ruptures in our bridges to God. Inasmuch as he has distorted his course, thus diminishing the supreme holiness. That is, he has diminished its value as regard to the efflux, or the flow of energy he could have elicited from God's divinity, and the radiation he could have elicited from the infinite Ein Sof light, had he observed the Torah and fulfilled it as required. Right? Meaning
Right.
when there's a rupture in the system, what do? Like you can't say, "Oh, I'm just gonna, put." When you've starved a person, right? Normally, a person needs a certain amount of calories and protein and minerals for the day, right? But let's say someone, God forbid, was starved. You can't just give them regular calories as if they were a healthy person. You have to course correct their malnutrition by certain amount of right supplements for a while till the system can be up and running. Then they can have regular calorie needs, right? But such a but so too in our system of our reality and our relating to God and the give and take between us and God, when you've diminished it by making not fulfilling your mission for that a certain day, that's never going to come back, right? If you miss an opportunity for a positive mitzvah, or a person does a negative mitzvah, a negative commandment, you could do tshuva. That day is not coming back, right? There's been a rupture in the system. Such distortion cannot be rectified except by an efflux or energy flow of the supreme light that transcends the worlds without being vested in them. Understand? You can't. God made what we call in Hasidus two. I mean, there's many two types of relating to the world. One is called Mimale Kalamin, which means God's tapering energy for every individualistic creation to get what it needs, right? You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? And the other one is
Sort of.
Sophic Kalam, is a transcendent type of energy. For example, Alan, just to give you an example, let's say you go to a country, you don't speak a word of the language, right? And somebody gets your attention and starts speaking animatedly in Portuguese, right? And let's say, I don't know, a stitch of Portuguese. Will you understand them? Will you understand them?
Absolutely not.
Will you get a little bit of their tone of voice and their, meaning, will you get 2% via their like
Right. You
tone of
might get
voice?
you might get the feelings of the attitude and or
Right. So you don't understand the
individual.
particulars, but you'll get the kind of maybe the overall gist or a little bit of the gist.
Yeah.
So too, as by way of analogy, God creates the world with words, right? The words are very specific energy amounts in very specific vessels to create certain things, right? Well, God uses energy to create water is different than the energy God uses to create fire. And everything is diffused through a whole intricate system of contraction until you get water. And then there's another kind of way of taking the energy and making it fire. That's like spoken words, very tapered. But then there's kind of the overall feelings, attitude, subliminal messaging, let's say, right? That's not in the words. That's that's very real to you. It's just you can't quantify it because it's outside your capability. That's what we call the transcendent light of God. So God makes a tapered light that goes into every being according to its level. But then there's a transcendent light that kind of is um, is transcendent over the entire of any particular. It's God's infinite, you know, projection of self, which by definition can't be comprehended by a finite being, but you can still we still are influenced by it, so to speak. That makes sense to you? Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, that term of God's transcendent light is what the Kabbalah is saying in the term Chesed Ilah, or the other term Rav Chesed. This is on page 77. Superior kindness or abundant kindness, meaning sometimes you need you because of the rupture in the tapered system of our relating to God, we need to draw a light that's above the system to repair it. Because that light radiates and diffuses infinitely without limited measure. It's not contracted within the worlds, but encompasses them from above in equal measure, as I said earlier. From the peak of all rungs to the end of all levels, everything. I mean, God, there's the tiniest ant and the biggest, celestial being is equally the same to God in a way, because God's above it all, it's transcendent at some level, at one perspective. Now, when man draws it downwards, this transcendent light by means of your deeds and arousal from below, this supreme light, the higher form of abundant kindness, extends within the world, rectifying all your ruptures, all the distortions, deficiencies caused by our either missed opportunities for positive mitzvahs or our, negative distortion of doing a negative thing. And that renews their light and goodness with an intense elevation on the level of a truly new light. And this is the famous saying of the sages in the Talmud that in the level where penitents stand, even the perfectly righteous do not stand. So you see where he's headed here, right? This is a fundraising letter. And he's saying, I mean, it's not like a manipulative letter, it's a truism letter. That the Hasidim, they say, look, Jewish law says we can't give more than 20%. And the Alter Rebbe is qualifying that is meant when you're a tzaddik, when you're righteous. Okay?
Right.
But if you're normal and you have deficiencies and that you've missed, mitzvah opportunities with God, and there's malnutrition in your system, your spiritual relationship system, you can't pretend you need the same spiritual calories of basic charity. Understand? You need to go, you have to say, how can I trigger the transcendent light, which I need to fill up the distortions of my spiritual machinery, relationship to God. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very powerful. And I have to say the story of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs went to, I believe, Cambridge or Oxford, I forget, one of those.
Yeah.
He took a gap year to go to study in yeshiva at 21 or so, 22. And surprisingly, I only found this out a few years ago. Well, he went to a Chabad yeshiva for 1 year in Kfar Chabad.
Before he was a rabbi?
Before he was a rabbi. He was a college student. He went for 1 year. He didn't go down the Chabad track ultimately, right? He became of the United Synagogues in England, but he went for a gap year to Israel to study at a Chabad yeshiva. And he went to meet, so one time, he had off time, and a family friend had moved to Israel, none other than the former chief rabbi of the British Commonwealth, who was a man by the name of a holy Jew by the name of Rabbi Yecheskel Abramsky. He was, Russian-born, a real Talmud genius, and he really was one of the great early 50s and 60s rabbinic steering committee of the way the British rabbinate works. Okay? But he had retired. This is probably late 60s or something. Maybe he came in the 40s and 50s, but this is late 60s. So he had already retired and moved to the Holy Land. So he went to visit him. So young Jonathan Sachs went to visit him. And he tells him, he asks, which yeshiva you studying? And he says, Kfar Chabad. So this Rabbi Abramsky was very, he was from the Lithuanian yeshivas, not Hasidic at all, but he had a lot to do with Chabad in Russia as the common goal to, keep Judaism alive underground. So he told young Jonathan Sachs that the difference between musar, right? Musar.
Musar is what? That's
Musar is
teaching transmission.
no musar. It refers particularly to kind of like self improvement philosophy in Judaism, right? Like self improvement, self rebuke. It's a whole system. It's more of the Lithuanian yeshiva style. And Hasidus, what's the difference of Musar and Hasidism? And he said, I'll tell you the difference. This is a very wise rabbi, not Chabad though. He said, Musar is what you do when the machine breaks down. Right? When you make a mistake, your machine breaks down, you do a sin, you do whatever, you veer off course. You gotta fix yourself. So you talk to yourself, you rebuke yourself, you motivate yourself, whatever it is. In Hasidus, or he said, when the car breaks down, when your car breaks down. And in Hasidus, I'm sorry, I take it back. I made a mistake. The difference is the way you approach teshuvah. Teshuvah in Musar is what you do when the car breaks down. You make a mistake, you mess up your car, your life, your car. You do teshuvah. You got to fix it up. It's a troubleshooting, mechanism. In Hasidus, teshuvah is the gas. You understand why?
No, I mean, I don't, I'm not sure I like the analogy, but
Tshuva
keep going.
could be looked at what you do. You messed up, you fix it up.
You return. Teshuvah literally means
Right. But Chassidus
the return is to the 613.
It means you're returning to the deepest part of yourself. Tshuva is what you do to return to the deepest part of yourself.
What do you mean by that? What's the deepest
Like
part?
we said today, it's almost, judo, you use your opponent's strength against him.
Yeah.
So Chassidus says it takes the fallibility of man that we constantly will make mistakes or miss, our potential, not always utilize our potential, right? With divinity and holiness and goodness. It takes that human fallibility, and it says, therefore, you can be in a constant state of return at the highest level. Understand?
I still don't know what I'm returning to. I mean, where's my deepest part?
Okay.